Every now and again, I like to make these videos about how worried I am about a Chinese invasion, because it's not something that people talk about, particularly all that often in Taiwan, as opposed to how many people talk about it outside of Taiwan. And in order to do so, I brought along a friend of mine, Topher.
Hey, I talk about it too much probably.
Yeah, Topher is another YouTuber here in Taiwan, based in Kaohsiung, and he talks a lot about the geopolitical situation between Taiwan and China. And so go check out his channel if you're interested in that kind of stuff. We're in the middle of this trash collecting bonanza. There's a whole bunch of
time we can walk on the street.
Yeah, people have to come and throw their trash out themselves into the truck. The reason I brought you along is because a little while ago I was in the Philippines and I ran into these U.S. Marines who are based in the Philippines, training for the scenario of a Chinese invasion. All right, thank you. There's nowhere for me to walk, sir. And they were adamant that I leave Taiwan, panicking even that I lived in Taiwan. They couldn't believe that I lived here.
Yeah.
They thought it was the most dangerous place to live in the world. Could you maybe talk about why they would think that way?
Well, I think they're probably stuck in like an information bubble, if I had to guess.
Right, like it's something like their commanders are telling all this stuff, and so they...
That's why they're in the Philippines, basically, is because as a deterrent to China. And I'm sure that they have commanders who feel that it is an inevitability that Taiwan gets attacked. Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but when. They probably don't understand the extensive history between Taiwan and China, and that this is the same old story that's been going on for nearly, 80 years? And it definitely has increased rhetoric with China's current leadership. There is the massive military buildup that China has undergone recently. So yeah, I think those are things for concern, but it's not a certainty.
I get a lot of messages, I'm sure you do as well, from people asking if we're worried about it, why we still live here, what's the situation like. And I always tell them the same thing. It's like literally no one in Taiwan cares that much. People don't talk about it. It's not a point of conversation you hear very often here in Taiwan. At least that's my anecdotal experience.
Almost never.
Almost never, yeah. And I'm not worried about it. I mean, I suppose you could fall into the trap of becoming complacent because of this. But I wanted to ask you, you have got some experience in the U.S. Army. You're a U.S. Army Ranger?
Well, I went through Ranger school, but I never served in a Ranger battalion. So I won't claim that I was a Ranger. I wore the tab, but I was never in a Ranger unit.
Okay, I think in layman's terms, he jumped out of airplanes and blew shit up.
Yeah, I've blown up a lot of shit.
Yeah, so this makes you an expert. Can you explain a little bit why you personally are not worried about it, or maybe you are?
I think that there is less than a 10% chance that China will directly attack Taiwan first. If they're going to invade anybody, that they're going to invade someone that they have a very high chance of success, and that would be Jimin or Matsu Islands. And there's a few geopolitical reasons, like the Taiwan itself has a defense treaty with the U.S. It's kind of a treaty. It's not anything that's set in stone. But Jimin and Matsu are not part of that treaty. They don't make any semiconductors on Jimin and Matsu.
Yeah, they just make gallium.
Yeah.
Would you say it's something similar to the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2014, where they annexed Crimea?
Right.
Where they don't take the whole country, Ukraine. They would just take a portion of it. So in this scenario, it would be something like Matsu or Jinmen.
Yeah, because there's geographical reasons that it's very difficult for China to invade Taiwan proper. It's very difficult for Taiwan to support Matsu and Jimin. Especially with Jimin Island, as far as I understand, chances that the local populace is going to be maybe even welcoming to the CCP is not zero.
I'm not particularly worried about an actual military invasion because I think it would be very difficult for the Chinese. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think that the price that they would have to pay is too high. And it's not really worth the risk. Now, what I am worried about, though, is a sort of different type of invasion, more of a cultural invasion, if you will. I'll give you a few examples of this. When I lived in China, there was a kind of an internet word, something similar to, like, the young kids say Riz, right in English. Right. And the word is newbie, which means a bull's, his baloney pony. It basically means awesome or rad or really cool.
It to mean.
Yeah. And I'd never heard this word before. It was some university kids taught it to me in China. And then I moved to Taiwan and I asked some people about this word, and no one had ever heard of it. No one knew what it meant. Fast forward to now, and like so many young people know this word. And it's just one of those things, examples like that of Chinese influence being extended to Taiwan. And you see a lot of young Taiwanese people watching things like, not TikTok because it's banned here, but Chinese memes or Chinese movies, Chinese music, all of these things that do matter, to the point where when I talk to younger people, I'm talking like early 20s, a lot of them really don't care about things like politics, democracy, which is terrifying because you would think, or at least I would think, that in a country where democracy was something that was almost a blessing, was so highly unlikely that you'd think that the people would care very much about it. And a lot of young people really don't.
Well, they've only lived within a democracy.
But also, given the threat that they're under, you would think that it would be almost a sense of pride or something worth protecting, even on a personal level. And so I'm shocked to find that. And so that is something I'm worried about, is not necessarily an actual military invasion with boots on the ground. I wonder if they're going to be able to slowly change the mind of the younger generation of Taiwanese people to the idea that maybe being Chinese isn't such a bad thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, propaganda is going to work on a certain percentage of the population. I mean, recently, just a few days ago, the TikTok ban in the U.S. basically became a sure thing. We'll see if it lasts or not.
Right.
And there's a lot of U.S. citizens that went over to the Chinese app, Little Red Book.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And they were quickly found that their super woke takes were not all that welcome on the Little Red Book. Look, the idea that it's going to be one country, two systems, China has already proven that false with Hong Kong. The other issue is that if Taiwan just decides to surrender to China, that there's no invasion, or if for whatever reason they actually do invade and they're successful.
Or it's a vote.
Or if it's a vote, something like that. You have to think about most of Taiwan's wealth comes from semiconductors. There's already sanctions on China with semiconductors. The semiconductor chain of supply, the supply chain, is almost entirely dependent on the USA, Europe, and Japan. The idea that Taiwan's immense wealth will continue to happen and Taiwan will continue to prosper under CCP leadership is completely false. Right now, the Taiwan dollar is one of the strongest currencies in Asia, while the Chinese yuan, has only gotten weaker and weaker and weaker. If China takes control of Taiwan, everything that you worked for, everything you went to school for, all of your family's wealth is going to just evaporate. It's going to be gone, and there's no way to build it back up. Taiwan being a technology powerhouse, that disappears literally overnight. All the machines that make these semiconductors, they're built in Europe, and they have remote kill switches. Do you really think that NATO is just going to say, you win, China? They're not going to give up.
These trash trucks are following us around everywhere, aren't they?
They know I'm in town.
Yeah.
China does a lot of military drills, and Taiwan, of course, responds in kind and gets their military ready, and they, send out all their air defense systems and all that sort of stuff. If they constantly send their air defense systems to the same locations, because these are mobile systems, they're on trucks. And when it looks like, this is not a military exercise, this is really going to happen, and they send that air defense system to the same location that they do every time they respond to just a military exercise,
right.
Well, it's almost certain that China knows that location.
That's part of their strategy and why they're making so many incursions into Taiwanese airspace, is so that they can map out the response of the Taiwanese. Another reason why I'm not really worried about it is because we would know if something serious was happening well before boots would be on the ground.
Certainly.
Like, people are always like, what would you do in an invasion? It's like, what would I do? I would get evacuated.
Yeah.
Like they're kicking all the foreigners out of here.
Yeah.
Well before anything happens. I don't think it would be much of a surprise. Maybe it would be, there could be some cybersecurity issues. Who knows? I'm not that's why I have you here.
Yeah, everybody would have to be caught with their pants down. Not just Taiwan, but America, all of Europe, everybody. Japan, Australia, every intelligence system would have to fail. Every satellite, every civilian who's looking at this situation would have to fail. There's no way that that's going to happen. I mean, you have a better chance of aliens invading. There are some analysts out there, and I'll use that word very loosely, that use the term decapitation attack.
Okay, so is that where they take out the top levels of government and military in order to suppress the people?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's been attempted before, but out from an external source actually trying to do that has never actually worked. I mean, the U.S. tried to do that with Saddam Hussein. It didn't work. It was a 20-year war. The only time that that's actually worked is in an internal military coup. I'm not aware of any historical precedents of this.
Another reason why we're not
Yeah.
all that bothered.
No, not really all that bothered. I mean, the reality is that in order to get boots on the ground in Taiwan, they would need to muster hundreds of thousands of soldiers. And you just can't do that in secret. That's too much equipment. That's too many people that need to be moving. You'll see that from satellite.
Oh, yeah.
The logistics behind it is huge. It'll be all over Chinese social media. Are there a lot of Chinese spies in Taiwan and in the Taiwanese military? Yeah. Are there a lot of Taiwanese and American and European and Israeli and Japanese spies in China? Also, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. I do think so.
No wonder I pissed them off so much when I said
Oh, yeah, that's exactly it. What they're doing, they're paying disgruntled citizens to spy for them.
Okay.
That's where that human intelligence comes from. There's plenty of people within China who are disgruntled enough with the CCP to occasionally feed information to foreign governments. And that's true with every government in every country, everywhere.
Yeah, so I hope that answers some of your questions. If you have more, feel free to comment them down below. I'd love to make another video just like this. It's always good to have you up in Taichung visiting.
Man, it's always great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like I said earlier, Topher's a former U.S. Army veteran. I don't know.
That works. That's all accurate.
Yeah, makes YouTube videos about the geopolitical situation here in Taiwan, so go check him out. You can follow me at Prozzy_SR over on Instagram. You can follow Topher at
Uncle Topher.
There you go, that was easy.
Yeah.
And
Migwa Susu.
Yeah. Subscribe to both of our channels. It would really help a lot if you want to see more videos just like this every single week. And yeah, keep your stick on the ice. Catch you guys next week for another video.